Hare Krishna. We discussed the 6th chapter up to 39th sloka. So Krishna described this Ashtanga Yoga up to 32nd verse. So he spoke about the two levels of Ashtanga Yoga, Yoga Ruksha and Yoga Rudha, the beginner level and the advanced level. And after that he discussed various practices of Ashtanga Yoga, the perfectional stage of Ashtanga Yoga, and methods to attain perfection, all that he spoke. And Arjuna expressed his concern in the 33rd and 34th slokas that this Ashtanga Yoga seems to be quite impractical to me because mind is very turbulent, unsteady, fickle and restless. So it's very difficult to control the mind. It's more difficult than controlling the wind. So I don't think it is very practical. Then Krishna says that controlling the mind is very difficult, but by abhyasa and vairagya, means by practice and detachment, you will be able to control the mind. Then Arjuna had another question. He said, what if a person with full faith begins the practice of yoga and after some time he because of his fickle mind, if he cannot continue the practice of yoga and he discontinues yoga without attaining perfection, what will the fate of such an unsuccessful yogi? That was the question. Now Krishna answers that question from the 40th sloka. 40. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Parthanaiveha Putra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Kaschit Durgatim Tata Gacchati. So Krishna is giving this answer. Yesterday we also discussed that whoever practices yoga and attains certain level in the yoga practice, he will not be in any loss, right? So he can continue from wherever he left, whenever he wants to come back, whenever he can afford to come back. So whatever sincere practice that you have done in yoga, that will never go waste. Neha vikramana susti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. We have discussed that yesterday also. So already Arjuna heard this statement from Krishna, but Arjuna's question here is meant to receive a reconfirmation about what Krishna spoke in 2.40. Neha vikramana susti. So unsuccessful yogi's fortune is what? So Arjuna specifically said, will he just be like a riven cloud who will not have any happiness in this life or in the next life? What exactly is his fate? Now Krishna says, Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyati. So whoever has endeavored to certain degree in the practice of yoga, so there will not be any misfortune for such a person. Okay. Nahi kalyanakrit kaschit. Kalyanakrit means engaging in auspicious activities. Whoever has engaged himself in some auspicious practice of yoga here will never meet any destruction or misfortune. Durgatim tata gacchati. There is no durgati for him. Why? Because it is kalyanakrit. Practicing yoga is the cause of auspiciousness. How can there be any durgati? How can there be any misfortune for such a person? Either in attaining material goals or attaining spiritual goals, there will not be any obstacle for him. Prabhupada writes, Tyaktva sadharmam charanambujam hare bhajan apakvotha patet tato yadi yatrakva vabhadram abhud amushyakim kovartha apto abhajatam sadharmataha. Here, Prabhupada says that if someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties, yet he may not gain anything. So, to worship the Supreme Lord, even if one has to give up one's swadharma or occupational duty, still one will not be at loss. Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam hare bhajan apakva. Although his bhajan is apakva, although he could not perfect his bhajan, still there is no loss for such a person. On the other hand, just sincerely doing occupational duties and keeping aside Krishna Bhakti, so one will not gain much. Okay. So for material prospects, there may be many activities, both scriptural and customary. A transcendentalist is supposed to give up all material activities for the sake of spiritual advancement in life or Krishna consciousness. One may argue that by Krishna consciousness one may attain the highest perfection if it is completed. What if I cannot complete? What if I don't achieve perfection? But if one does not attain such a perfectional stage, then he loses both materially and spiritually. Some may say like that. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one has to suffer the reaction of not executing prescribed duties. Therefore, one who fails to discharge transcendental activities properly becomes subject to these reactions. Bhagavatam assures unsuccessful transcendentalist that Bhagavatam assures the unsuccessful transcendentalist that there is no need to be worrying. Even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties, he is still not a loser, because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one so engaged will continue to be so, even if he is low born in the next life. Okay. So point here is, whatever time and energy that you have invested in yoga or in your attempts to connect with the Supreme will never be lost. Especially if it is Bhakti Yoga, you have endeavored to do Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. You have invested some time and energy in these activities. So those activities will protect the person in the most dangerous circumstances also. So humanity may be divided into two sections, namely regulated and non-regulated. Those who are engaged simply in sense gratification without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section. And those who follow the principles of prescribed duties, they are regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and uneducated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. Their activities are never auspicious. But those who are engaged in regulated activities, they will attain auspiciousness. Okay? And those who are following that path of auspiciousness, again they are divided into three sections. Number one, followers of scriptural rules and regulations who enjoy material prosperity. And those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence. And those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Basically, Karmi, Jnani, Yogi. Those who are following the rules and regulations of scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes. Fruity workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. There is Sakama Karmi, there is Nishkama Karmi. They are engaging in their prescribed duty, but you have Sakama tendency, you have Nishkama tendency. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to higher planets, but still they are not free from material existence. Okay. The only auspicious activities are those that will lead one to liberation. That's why in Bhagavatam also it is said that you should endeavor for something which is not attainable in all the three planetary systems. What is that shloka? That is, you need to endeavor for something. Tasyaiva hetoh prayateta kovido nalabhyate ramadan uparyadaha. Tallabhyate dukkhavadanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira samsara. Endeavor for the greatest thing. Don't settle down with some petty material efforts. Okay. That's what Bhagavatam also says. So once you endeavor for the highest thing, even if you don't perfect in that path, but still it's okay. whatever practice you have done with sincere heart, so that is an eternal investment. So if you can't read 12 cantos, at least read one canto, at least read 2 cantos. Still, that's a good investment. Not touching Bhagavatam at all is like wasting time. But even if you touch Bhagavatam, even if you cannot reach the 12th canto, at least you read first canto, right? Some inspiration will get, some purification will get. 41st sloka. प्राप्य पुण्यकृतां लोकान् उषित्वा शाश्वतीः समाः शुचीनां श्रीमतां गेहे योगभ्रष्टोऽभिजायते. This is another popular sloka. प्राप्य पुण्यकृतां लोकान्. So Krishna says, in general, Krishna said in the 40th sloka that there will not be any misfortune for an unsuccessful yogi. In the 41st and 42nd slokas, he becomes more specific. Okay, you are saying that there will not be any misfortune. Okay, Durgatim Tata Gacchati. What exactly do you mean? Then Krishna gives details in the next 2 slokas. If a yogi deviates from his practice, after a short amount of practice, what will happen to him? He says in the 41st sloka. But if somebody falls down after a long amount of practice, what will happen to him? That he will speak in the 42nd sloka. Okay, he will become more specific now. So, an unsuccessful yogi who falls down after a short practice of yoga, what will happen? Prapya punya kritam lokan. He will attain planets that are attainable by pious people. Okay, that's higher planets. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvatihi samaha. Okay, and he enjoys there for a long time. Shashvata is not eternally, for a long time he can enjoy there. And Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, after enjoying in some planets of the pious people, he will again take birth in Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, in the house of aristocratic people and spiritually inclined people, religious people, like that, righteous or wealthy people. Yoga Bhrashto Abhijayate. Right? If you fall after a short practice, you will enjoy a long life in the upper planets, and later you will take birth in the earthly planet in the house of wealthy and religious people, righteous people. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, the real purpose of yoga practice is to achieve the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness. But those who do not persevere to such an extent, and who fail because of material allurements are allowed by the grace of the Lord to make full utilization of their material propensities. Even after yoga practice for a while, still your material desires are haunting you, and somehow you just give in into that because of those material propensities. And Krishna gives an opportunity. Okay, fine, you fulfill that, and then get more frustrated with that and then come back to it. Okay, you still have some hope in matter. Fine, let's test. You can test yourself if your hope can be fulfilled. After that, you come back to me. He gives that opportunity. So, and after that, they are given opportunities to live prosperous lives in richest, righteous and aristocratic families. We discussed this. 42nd sloka. Athava yoginameva कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरम् लोके जन्म यदीदृशम्. So sometimes, even though perfected their practice by fate, some yogi might develop some desire to enjoy and then accept such enjoyment. For example, somebody performs yoga practice for such a long time, like Saubhari Muni. He was under the waters, he was in Vrindavan Dham, he was under Yamuna, but because of some offense to Garuda or whatever, he just saw mating of 2 fish and then he developed some sense gratificatory desires. He came out, he went to King Mandhata. Mandhata had 50 daughters. And Saubhari Muni said, I want your daughter in marriage to me. And seeing this old Brahmana who is looking so thin and weak. After all, if you do austerities underwater for such a long time, you may not look so handsome. Hmm. So he did not go with any makeup and all. He Mandhata saw Saubhari Muni and said, "You want my daughters? Okay, I have to get my daughters married to you." Actually, if he says no, Brahmana he becomes. Okay, Mandhata said, actually, I have given the freedom to my daughters to choose their husband. So you can go to my daughters. If my daughter get attracted to you, if my daughters like you, then I'll get you married. No problem. Okay. He played safe. So here is my messenger, my soldier. He will take you to my daughter's palace. So there my daughters are there. So whichever daughter likes you, so I'll get her married to you. He was confident also. My daughter may not like such an old person. Okay. Then Saubhari Muni, being a mystic yogi, he understood. Okay, fine. So then, as the messenger was taking Saubhari Muni to the inner chambers where Mandhata's 50 daughters were there, Saubhari Muni with his mystic potency changed his form into a very beautiful, handsome young man. Then he went in front of these 50 girls, and all these girls started fighting with each other. I want her, I want him as my husband, I want him as my husband. So when all the daughters were fighting, then the message was given to Mandhata and my daughters have gone crazy or what? Right? They are fighting to marry this woman, and then he went there, and then he saw. So he is such a young, handsome, strong man. Then all the 50 daughters were married to Saubhari Muni. And Saubhari Muni enjoyed for a long time with all these 50 girls. And his family became 51 to 50, 5,000 like that. Then one day he sat there and then he thought, I was alone. Then I got 50 girls. I became 51 and I have 5,000 children also. My family has become so big. Why did I get engrossed in this materialistic family life, household life? And seeing the ability to enjoy in Saubhari Muni, Mandhata got frustrated. Mandhata got detached. He said, my God, no one can enjoy life, material life to such an extent. So he retired. Mandhata retired. And Saubhari is enjoying. And one day he contemplated and then he went back to his spiritual life. And all his 50 wives were also, they also took to spiritual life. So sometimes there could be some deviation in yoga, even at a very advanced stage also. Even after long practice of yoga, also there could be some distraction and deviation. One has to be very careful. Okay. So here, in the 42nd shloka, Krishna says, Athava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam. An unsuccessful yogi who falls down after a long practice takes his birth in a family of greatly wise yogis. Okay. Kule bhavati dhimatam. Etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yudidrisham. So, certainly such a birth is extremely rare in this world. So, if you fall down after a long practice, then again you will be given opportunity to continue the practice. Especially if one gives up one's body after unsuccessful practice of yoga, you may be given opportunity to take birth in a very highly elevated family, who are very spiritually inclined. From there he can continue. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of life. If the parents are already devotees, children will automatically adopt that culture of devotion. Okay, small kids also, they may bring flowers to the Lord. No, you see, today morning some small children were there, hardly some 3 to 3-year-old boys and girls. They are getting big lotuses, offering to Vrindavan Bihari. In Guru Puja they dance, they put this, all this, chandan. So like that, during festivals, when we are doing decoration there, in Varjolan Yatra, Sarat Purnima, so many children come there. Then Govardhan, so many people are there, small children. They come and assist. So taking birth in a devotee family is a very rare fortune. Where right from childhood you are bombarded with spiritual vibrations. You will develop a lot of inclination for advanced spiritual life. Right, such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India, there are many Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. And another perspective on this is, by taking birth in a family of devotees, you have the opportunity to become a nice devotee. But it ultimately boils down to how you utilize your independence. One can be in a devotee family surrounded by devotees, still one can be spaced out. Okay, one may not adopt to the culture of devotion at all. Seeing their parents always going to temple and chanting Hare Krishna, the child may get frustrated sometimes. Sometimes the child also will follow the parents to the temple. So like that, it's not necessary. Ultimately, it boils down to one's own independence, how one utilizes one's independence. So by the grace of the Lord, there are still some families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. And fortunately, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur proposes, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families. So Prabhupada took birth in a devotee family, Gaur Mohan De. What was his father's aspiration? My son, means Prabhupada, has to become a great devotee of Srimati Radharani. That was the aspiration of Prabhupada's father. Okay? If the child is becoming a devotee, fathers may become insecure sometimes in the Yuga. But here is one father who is desiring that his child has to become a great devotee of Srimati Radharani. So by the grace of Lord, and both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. So we have many other examples like that. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur's family, and Parikshit Maharaj. He was playing right from childhood while searching for Krishna. Uddhava plays with dolls of Krishna, and even when his mother was calling, Uddhava, come and take prasad, but he would not take. He would not take his meals. He is so engrossed in worshipping Radha Krishna. Okay, so like that, we have seen so many examples from the scriptures and the live examples also. The devotees are born and brought up in a very spiritually surcharging ambience, and they perfected their lives, and they helped others also in their perfection. 43rd shloka. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labhate purvadaihikam yatate cha tato bhuyah samsiddhau guru nandana. Tatratam buddhi samyogam. What will happen to such people who take birth in families of good devotees who are spiritually inclined? So such people receive the divine consciousness of previous life and again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. Okay, all the devotional spiritual impressions that this person, this unsuccessful yogi, had in the previous life, so he will remember all of it and he will continue from wherever he left. Okay, he will pick up spiritual life very fast. Now you are trying to preach to say some young boys, new people. Some people pick up the spiritual process very fast. Some people it will take a lot of time. You invest a lot of time. Even after 10 years, they will come to 2 rounds. Some people just within few months only, they will come to 16 rounds. So Prabhupada writes, King Bharata, who took his third birth in the family of good Brahmana, is an example of good birth for revival of previous transcendental consciousness. So Bharata was an unsuccessful yogi because of some undue attachment to a deer. Bharat Maharaj, although he reached up to Bhava stage, he could not perfect his devotional service. So he had to take birth as a deer animal. But somehow by Krishna's grace, his remembrance of previous life as a devotee was still there, and even in the body of a deer also, the he is performing devotional service, whatever he could manage. He left his mother, he went all the way to Kalahashram again, he associated with devotees there, and eventually he gave up that dear body also, and he took birth as a Brahmana, Jadabharat, the son of a Brahmana who is coming in Angira dynasty. There he was completely oblivious to all the people around him, and he was totally absorbed in Krishna. So apparently, for his mistake of getting attached to an insignificant animal, a deer, Krishna punished him. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. So Krishna says that whatever you remember at the time of leaving your body, you will attain that state. So Bharat Maharaj remembered a deer and he attained the body of a deer. Okay. So how can Krishna apply that formula simply? So Krishna, although externally he gave him a deer body, he gave him devotee consciousness. Dear Bharat is more spiritually advanced than King Bharat. And Jada Bharat is more spiritually advanced than dear Bharat. Although apparently Bharat Maharaj had to take 2 more lives, 2 more bodies. One is an animal body also. But still, his spiritual advancement is continuing. Means, neha bhikramana sosti pratyavayo na vidyate. Svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So even if little amount of devotional service is done in this life, so one should, that will protect one, and that spiritual investment is eternal. And this should not be an impetus for us thinking that, okay, I have done some bhakti to certain degree now, let me take a break, let me enjoy for some sense gratification. Anyways, Krishna will give me a chance in the next life. I will continue from there. I will make a 5 lifetimes plan. Okay, for perfection in devotional service. So, to the best of one's ability, one has to practice the sadhana or the regimen given by our acharyas and try to perfect one's life, one's spiritual consciousness within one life only, one lifetime only. That's what Prabhupada says. Whether we will become perfect or not, it's in Krishna's hands. Right? Circumstantially, one may get distracted from spiritual practices. But in a premeditated way, when one becomes distracted in spiritual practices, it's not very wise. Okay. Sometimes somebody may get circumstantially distracted and then Krishna will again bring him back. So all these things will happen. Sometimes devotees may get distracted, other devotees will come and help that person. So all this will happen. But consciously, if one says, okay, let me take a break now, I will enjoy some sense gratification. Next life I will continue. Anyways, Suchinam Srimatam Dehi Yoga Bharashto Vijayate. I will definitely take birth in a wealthy family and aristocratic family or spiritually inclined family. Long practice. 10 years ho gaya na. In 10 years means it's a long practice. So 42nd month is applicable to me, not 41st month. So you cannot do all this. So one has to practice bhakti to the best of one's ability and try to perfect one's life within one lifetime as much as possible. From your side, endeavor has to be there. From Krishna's side, when he will show mercy, it's up to him. So, there are some shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, that give us a very encouraging note. Okay, even if somebody gets distracted, still Krishna is there for him. So we need to take encouragement and inspiration from those sections. We should not feel complacent and laxity in our spiritual practice just because, okay, Krishna is kind anyways. Aho bhagiyam stanakala kotam jigham sa ya paye gatya sadhi lebhe gatim bhaktari uchitam tatvanyam kamvadayavam sharanam rajema. Who can be more merciful than Krishna? Krishna is so merciful. So let me take some advantage of that mercy and do something. I am not as bad as Putana. I never tried to kill Krishna. If Putana gets the position of a motherly nurse in the spiritual world, I must be at least getting the position of a Gopa in the spiritual world. I can be like Krishna's friend. So you cannot predict what position Krishna is going to give you. there are some extremely merciful cases in the scriptures, Gita, Bhagavatam and all. Take encouragement from that. But don't become complacent in bhakti. And there are some strict statements also. So if somebody is getting overconfident in his devotional service, he's becoming very proud and thinking that okay, I have already practiced it for a long time. He is becoming a little reckless and careless. You should not say Kamba Dayalam Saranam Brajama to him. You should tell him Bhojanma kare yadi Shravana Kirtan Tabuna Paive Krishna Padi. So even after long years of practice, one may not attain Krishna Prema. So that's a very strict side of the scriptures that we have to take a caution out from it. Okay, so we need to have a proper balanced practice of spiritual life. So one should take inspiration and encouragement from these liberal pastimes, and one should take a caution note and become more strict in one's practice by taking advantage of these kind of slokas like Bahujanma Kareyadi Shravana Kirtan and all that. Okay. So we need to, what is recommended for us is to stick to the practice, the regulated practices of sadhana given by the acharyas, and continue the process of bhakti to the best of your ability. And take inspiration from merciful cases and take a caution note from strict slokas. All that. 44. Purvabhyasena tenaiva Hridehyavashopi saha Jignasurapi yogasya Shabda brahmadi vartate. So 44th sloka. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic practices of the scriptures. So Jadabharat is a perfect example for this concept. So it becomes so natural for one to be inclined to spiritual practices, having taken birth in a devotee family. So Prabhupada writes these slokas. Aho batasvapachoto gariyo yajjihva gare vartate namadubhyam te pustapaste jihu shreshwararya brahmanoju nama granatyete. Persons who chant the holy names of your Lordship are far, far advanced in spiritual life, even if born in families of dominators. Such chanters have undoubtedly performed all kinds of austerities and sacrifices, bathed in all sacred places, finished all scriptural studies. Okay. The famous example of this was presented by Lord Chaitanya, who accepted Haridas Thakur as Namacharya. Although he was born in a Mleccha family or Yavana family, still he was accepted as Namacharya. He was constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. Holy name has such a purifying potency. So we have discussed up to 44th sloka, 45th. Prayatna yadamanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddha tato yati param gatim. Prayatna yadamanastu. Okay, here Krishna says, when such a yogi sincerely does endeavor. Prayatna means, yatna is endeavor. Prayatna means very strong and sincere endeavor. Prayatna jatadanastu, when such a yogi sincerely endeavors for perfection. Yogi samsiddha kilbishaha. Samsiddha kilbishaha. Kilbisha means sins. All his sins are washed away. Being washed of all contaminations and being very sincere in his practice, he ultimately achieves the supreme goal of liberation. Aneka janma samsiddha tato yati param gatim. Okay. So the supreme goal of liberation he attains after many births of practice. So येषां तु अन्तगतं पापं जनानां पुण्यकर्मणां ते द्वन्द्वमोहं निर्मुक्ता भजन्ते मां दृढव्रताः. One who is devoid of all kilbisha or sinful proclivities, they can easily take up to devotional service. So, the process of bhakti and the chanting of the holy name can purify even a sinful soul also. But ultimately, one has to relinquish that sinful propensities. Now, a father may love a mischievous child also, but that does not mean the child continues to do mischief. Father will be more happy when the child is disciplined and well behaved. Although his love for the child continues to exist even if the child does some mischief, still father will be happier when the child is well behaved, right? Similarly, although Krishna may accommodate people who are little distracted or deviated, he may still show some mercy and kindness directly or indirectly upon them. Still, Krishna will be much happier with someone who is dedicated to him without Krishna's special endeavor. Okay, so although Krishna says that I will protect even unsuccessful yogis also because he has taken up the yoga practice once, I still will be I will continue to be kind to him. Krishna says that. But Krishna will be much happier if you sincerely practice bhakti yoga and attain perfection without any deviations. And why Krishna will be happy with this? Because you will be happy by doing that. Krishna desires our own happiness. If you are getting distracted, we will be getting into miseries. Krishna is not happy with that. Okay, although he protects us. So that's why people who voluntarily give up sin and voluntarily endeavor to practice Krishna consciousness become more dear to Krishna than people who are externally superimposed. Right? You have to do this. It takes a lot of effort to bring one to Krishna consciousness. Okay, and devotees may kindly do that also, but those who are naturally inclined to take to Krishna consciousness, Krishna becomes much more happier. Okay. Next. Krishna consciousness is the perfect stage of being free of all contaminations. So, in the last two slokas of this chapter, Krishna will speak some profound principles. So, having described very eloquently that even if one falls down from yoga practice, still such a person is not a loser. Krishna's mercy and kindness is still there for such a person. Therefore, better be a yogi. That's what Krishna says in the 46th sloka. Tapasvibhyodhiko yogi ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्चाधिको योगी तस्माद् योगी भवार्जुन. Very important and profound words. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. Tapasvi means one who is an ascetic, who performs a lot of austerities and penances. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. A yogi is greater than or better than a tapasvi. Clear? First line is clear. Next. Jnanibhyopi matodhikaha. I also consider that a yogi is better than an empiricist, a jnani, a person who is cultivating knowledge. So, yogi is better than tapasvi, yogi is better than jnani. Next, karmibhyascha yogi. A yogi is definitely better than karmi, a fruitive worker. So, it's not karma yogi or jnana yogi. He is just saying karmi and jnani. So, a yogi is better than karmi, yogi is better than jnani, yogi is better than tapasvi. Fine. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Therefore, become a yogi. Krishna says in all circumstances. Fine. Now, basically, yoga means linking with the Supreme. Yogi means one who is endeavoring to link with the Supreme. So, which yogi Krishna did not specify here. Okay. But what is there in his heart? He reveals in the next sloka. Of all the yogis, the yogi could be anything. karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, bhakti yogi. It could be anything. But Krishna simply said, Tasmat yogi bhavarjuna. Basically, yogi means try to link with the Supreme. If you try to link with the Supreme through your fruitive activities or prescribed duties, you are a karma yogi. If you are trying to link with the Supreme with your knowledge pursuits and philosophical analysis, you become a jnana yogi. If you try to link with the Supreme by meditation, you will become an ashtanga yogi. If you try to link with the Supreme by performing devotional service of Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaranam, etc., then you will become a bhakti yogi. Of all these four yogis, Krishna just simply said, Tasmat yogi bhavarjuna, become a yogi. In all these four paths of yoga, you are trying to link with Krishna only, through various mediums. But of all those people or yogis who are trying to connect with the Supreme, who is the best yogi? Bhakti yogi. That's what he says in the 47th sloka, the next sloka. Okay. Is it clear? The translation is clear? So, we'll come to this purport little later. 47th. Yoginamapi sarvesham Madgate anantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam Same yuktatamo matah Yoginamapi sarvesham Madgate anantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam Same yuktatamo matah Yoginamapi sarvesham means of all the yogis. Madgatena antaratmana, one who always abides with Krishna and thinks of Krishna always within oneself. Madgatena antaratmana, within himself, he is always thinking about Krishna. He is dedicated to Krishna fully. And Shraddhavan, with faith, bhajate yoma, the person who performs devotional service unto Krishna with faith and love and devotion. Krishna says, Same yuktatamo mataha, such a person is the most intimately united person with me in yoga. Okay, this is basically referring to bhakti. Okay, karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, and bhakti yogi. And this one sloka is specifically referring to bhakti yogi. Krishna simply said in 46th sloka, you become a yogi. Because yogi is better than tapasvi, karmi, and jnani. So become a yogi. What kind of yogi? That yogi who always is dedicated to me, who always thinks of me, who does bhajati, means service, devotional service, that includes Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Mandaram, Dasam, all this. So such a person is much more dear to me. So this verse is a concise statement of bhakti which acts as seed sloka for the next 7 chapters. Okay. So the process of direct surrender to Bhagavan is described here and which will be defined and elaborated from chapter 7 to chapter 12. Okay. It is like thread-like ornament on the neck of the devotees of bhaktas. The bhakta is like a golden mountain, while others are just like high and low mountains. Others are also yogis, but and they are trying to link with the Supreme. But what is the best way of linking with the Supreme? Through bhakti, through services. Okay. Now we'll go through the purports slightly. Bhajate has its root in bhaj, which is used here when there is need for service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaja. Worship is puja, but bhaja is much more elaborate than worship. It includes seva, service. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to a worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. One cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Okay? Only the thoroughly condemned people avoid the Supreme Lord. But thoroughly devoted people love Him, serve Him, do bhajan of the Lord. Okay, so like that there are few other points. Therefore, bhajati is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods also. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of Bhakti in Bhakti Yoga. Yoga actually means Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are progressions towards the destination of Bhakti Yoga. That's why Prabhupada in these purports, he presents this whole thing like a ladder. So you can go to page number 19 of Gita Subodhini, where this is mentioned. Okay. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So the Prabhupada writes, Yoga actually is Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga, now you see, from the beginning of Karma Yoga to the end of Bhakti Yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma Yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. Karma Yoga means Nishkama Karma Yoga. You are doing your prescribed duties without any attachment to the results of your activities, without any material desires. By that you will cultivate knowledge. Okay? So the end of the culmination of Nishkama Karma Yoga is Jnana. And with that Jnana knowledge you try to connect with the Supreme. Okay? So then it becomes Jnana Yoga. So with knowledge you are connecting with the Supreme and then it intensifies into meditation on the Supreme Lord. That becomes Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, without having purified oneself of material propensities by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga, one cannot directly jump to Ashtanga Yoga. Okay? And the result of Nishkama Karma Yoga is Jnana. Okay? When you are intensifying your meditation on the Lord, it becomes Ashtanga Yoga. And a Ashtanga Yogi, by deep meditation, when he comes to the later levels of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi that we discussed yesterday, so he will become a Bhakti Yoga. That's a gradual progression. And one can directly start with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam also. It doesn't have to go through Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. But there's a progression also. A Karma Yogi will end up in Jnana Yoga. A Jnana Yogi will end up in Ashtanga Yoga. An Ashtanga Yogi will end up as Bhakti Yogi. Okay, if it goes in a natural, smooth progression. Otherwise, a Jnana Yogi may aspire for liberation and then he goes somewhere else. Okay, so it's like a ladder to go to the top floor. Now, you reach up the third floor and say, okay, I'm happy with the third floor. I don't have to go to the 10th floor. You will be there. That's a feeling. But all these are like progressive steps. When Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the Super Soul by different physical processes and the mind is on the Supreme Lord, it is called Ashtanga Yoga. And when one surpasses the Ashtanga Yoga, comes to the point of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is Bhakti Yoga. So this is the progression. Only in this purport, this yoga is presented as ladder. Of all these yogas, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Okay, and the culmination of Bhakti Yoga, the essence of Bhakti Yoga is Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namastu. Okay, by performing, by thinking of Krishna always, by becoming his devotee, by worshipping him, and by offering obeisances to him and entertaining him. So that completes the first section of Bhagavad Gita, the first 6 chapters. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.